After the recent patch for Remnant 2, I wanted to see if we could make a better unstoppable tank build. Remember the Root Doctor? Yeah, that thing was a beauty. But does it still work? I did a full run of the game on Apocolypse, testing a different build in each world. Ultimately, I landed on the one that I liked the most, but each option did work and allowed me to beat bosses without dying at all. Oh, and yeah, we fixed the empathy problem. The Ravager is the toughest to take down if he has empathy due to his pull-in AoE attack, and we can bring him down way faster even still. These are 3 busted tank builds in Remnant 2. So before we check out the different builds, let's define some equipment. As far as classes, relics, and guns go, I didn't switch anything up. The trinkets and rings are the main items I changed, so here's everything you can keep for each of the 3 builds. As far as classes, we want Medic as Prime. This lets us infinitely regen relics by taking damage and offers some stagger resistance upon relic usage. For the skill, you want Wellspring, which regens quickly and provides an additional pool of healing you can throw down and just stand in to be immortal. Then you want Summoner as your secondary, as it provides you with a minion to help you in combat. The Reaver is a colossal tank and will deal up to 3k damage, sometimes all by himself. Because our damage is not particularly amazing when going full tank, he can often clear out enemies for you with no help at all. You can also gain some of the relics back faster by healing him with them, so this helps you stay maxed out during less damaging boss fights. For armor, you want Leto Mark 1 on everything except for the arms. The gauntlets need to be Labyrinth gloves as they have the highest armor for gauntlets. The Mark 1 Leto now has more defense compared to the Mark 2 after the patch and will be better for taking damage rather than trying to avoid it. The relic you want is the Resonating Heart, which provides healing for 5 seconds, and then all extra healing is essentially doubled for 20 seconds. So if you have full health when you take this, the next 20 seconds will make you nearly immortal, and often heavy attacks don't even look like they're damaging your health at all. Alternatively, you can run the Crystal Relic to be more tanky, however that one makes you slow and I do not enjoy being that slow, but it can push our defense past some affixes that boost boss damage, so keep it in mind. The relic fragments need to be armor effectiveness, healing effectiveness, and extra health, all to improve the various means by which we will heal through attacks. As for weapons, you can realistically run whatever you want, but I found these 3 to be the best possible options. Merciless, equipped with Twisting Wounds as the Mutator. This applies 2 stacks of bleed that will reduce the amount of healing bosses can get as well as deal damage over time. It helps decrease the effectiveness of the empathy affix and also just puts out a lot of damage overall. Then you want the Krell Axe. Equipped a new Stormbringer Mutator, and now you're going to have a tank build with some decent damage. The Mutator lets you throw the Krell Axe and weaken enemies to the shock and bleed that you then apply, further out-damaging empathy and making those longer boss fights take a short amount of time now. Finally, we want Nebula because its mod deals crazy damage on its own, but also because with the acid damage, you now have 4 stacks of statuses that are buffed and shredding boss health as you play. The new Mutator Kill Switch is fun on this one as it deals a large burst of damage. Not necessary really, but I enjoyed having it on for groups. Traits are going to stay the same for all 3 builds, and we have Triage for healing, Regrowth for healing, Fortify for armor, Vigor for health, Endurance for stamina, Spirit to get those mods coming back, Expertise so you can get the Reaper back if he dies, Bark Skin for 10% more damage reduction, and finally Blood Bond so your summons takes a bit of the damage dealt to you. All of this makes you heal exceptionally well and have ridiculous amounts of armor. Alright, so the difference in each build comes in at the trinkets. Different amulets and rings have some interesting effects that you might want to check out. The first setup I tried was this one right here. The Twisted Idol increases armor effectiveness by 35% and reduces encumbrance by 15%. I assumed the extra armor would be a large benefit to us. The Ring of Robust increases armor by 10 and bumps health up by 10. More health and armor is a nice combo. Seal of the Empress increases health by 20 and reduces stamina by 5. The stamina doesn't matter much really, and more health is more health. The Blessed Ring grants 2 stacks of Bulwark after receiving a relic benefit. This means that after taking a relic, we gain much more defense for 30 seconds. And since you need to take a relic about every 15 seconds, this is going to last forever, getting us up to about 77 damage reduction, which the max is 80%, so lots of defense here. And finally, we have the Dead King's Memento for 15 more health. I also ran the Bark Skin concoction for 30 extra armor. I managed to take down the Hatchery, Custodian's Eye, and Talrotha with this build, and never once did I die. You're reducing the damage of attacks by so much that the lower healing can still get you back up to full in no time. You can ignore almost all damage, and that's the one problem. I noticed that if I didn't actively try to avoid some of the boss attacks, my health would get scary low. The Custodian Eye, for example, has 2 attacks that are most often one-shots. He leaves behind purple blasts that explode and later shoots a stream of blue shots. Both of these would have gotten me if I hadn't been actively running away from them. This means that you could use this build for most bosses and be fine, but on some like Venom and Annihilation that have so much damage per hit, you would most likely go down. And since you have a flop dodge in this setup, there really isn't a good way to avoid some of those attacks. So decent tank build that works most of the time, but not all the time. The second setup is this one right here. If it looks familiar, it's because it's almost the exact same set of trinkets I used on the Root Doctor build. Rusted Navigator's Pendant grants several stats, but 20 more health is the big one. Ring of Robust offers more health and more armor. Ring of the Forest Spirit increases healing effectiveness by 15%. Then Dead King's Memento provides 15 more health. Unlike the first one, this one never even came close to dying at all. You've got so much health with the Mudtooth Tonic concoction that it actually overlaps your skill on the bottom there. And yeah, this one works perfectly. I managed to take down Legion, Root Mother, and Ravager with this build, and I simply stood there, took all the damage for every single fight. No running to avoid attacks and no attempting to dodge at the right moment. The Ravager fight even had empathy and more damage from Spiteful, which is important to note. Still sat there and took his spin attack like a boss. So, if you're looking to ignore damage in this game, the Root Doctor works like a charm and can now defeat empathy quite easily. Just be aware we have nothing buffing the summon's health, so if you don't avidly take a relic for him as well as yourself, he's not going to make it. Then we come down to the third setup. This is my personal favorite, and I completed all of Lawsome and Root Earth with this as it was more fun than the other two. Red Doe Sigil increases relic healing effectiveness by 30%, which is doubled to 60% when below half health. This makes your already really good healing relic heal much faster. It can also be paired up to use Shade Step since it's an amulet from Yesha that has the moon symbol on it. Ring of Robust for the armor and health, Seal of Empress for health, Dead King's Memento for health, and finally the Ring of Omens, which gives you the Shade Step dodge paired up with our amulet and makes all dodges cost health instead of stamina. This works well because we will always be healing and thus the dodge damage is completely ignored. Then you have the fact that this massive armor set makes us flop dodge. Well, the Shade Step takes that away completely and ignores it. Now you have one of the best dodges in the game, some of the best healing in the game, and extremely high defense at about 66 damage reduction. Paired up with Mudtooth's Tonic, you have about as much health as you did in the last build, but twice the healing, and being able to dodge feels way more fun, as you could probably imagine. So let's take this step by step. The Huntress boss stood there and took everything without my health bar even moving an inch. Also, she died in under a minute, which is pretty darn fast. Gwendol the Unburnt. Joke of a fight and didn't even deal any damage to me at all. Red Prince. He even had more damage and I still healed through every attack while 5 times cursed, which takes my health to half. Another nearly 1 minute fight. Fei Lin didn't even try to dodge and nothing he hit me with even scratched me. Even his one-hit slam down, I just brushed off and let the summon take him down. Cancer had more damage from Skullcracker and still never hurt me. This was actually the easiest fight of them all, which is crazy considering his high damage. He has stagger, but I have high damage and infinite health, which means I win. Venom finally managed to actually take me down, but that's because those large pools of red he throws do so much damage in only about 3 seconds that you can't out-heal it. I had to turn my brain on just a little bit for this fight to avoid the hardest attacks, but still was able to get hit most of the time and be fine. I imagine with some damage buff affixes though, you will need to be a little more careful of his melee attacks or switch over to the Crystal Heart. Annihilation. Finally, we have the ultimate final boss, which yes, he can beat you, but only if you're not playing. Make sure to destroy all but one of the orbs and you can take one and be okay. Be sure to dodge all but one of his slam downs, as if he chains them you might not heal fast enough before the next one gets you. But that's it. All his other melees, all of the other damage you could take in the data realm, none of that can drop you. And again, if you switched over to the Crystal Heart for this one, you might actually be perfectly unkillable. While this build is not quite as quote-unquote unkillable as the Root Doctor, it serves the exact same purpose and grants you a bit more fun with the Shade Step. For all except Root Earth, you're going to have no issues whatsoever, and honestly the buff from the Krell Axe means no boss fight is going to take 20 minutes anymore. Annihilation had Hardy, and I still beat him in about 6 minutes. And there you have 3 tank builds in Remnant 2. The first one I tried was around some of the patch buffs I'd hoped would make other options better. It's okay, but not the best. The second is the good old Root Doctor, but now you have a flop dodge due to the armor changes. Unkillable 98% of the time, and an excellent option. And finally, you have the Root Doctor 2.0, which is my personal favorite. I think it works better in most situations and is just a good time to use overall. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, a like down below would be fantastic. I simply wanted to see what kind of tank options we have for the upcoming DLC, and a few different trinkets got changed. Ultimately, the results came out nicely. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll catch you next time.